All right. Good morning. Well, I guess it's good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you're at. I'd like to introduce my guest, Rob Black, over here. Um, Welcome to our sixth CEO Success Story webinar. Rob is a certified security professional, and he'll talk all about that stuff today. I've actually known Rob for 18 years, going back to 3Com. So his background is in the VoIP world, along with from software perspective, and moved on from VoIP and UCAS into security, and now he's a founder, a startup founder. In 2017, he founded Fractional CISO. So welcome, Rob.
Thanks, Bill. Great to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to found Fractional CISO?
Absolutely. Yeah. So been in the technology space for a long time. In kind of switch gears from voice. So I worked for a couple of voice companies, Artisoft and 3Com, and then switched gears to security. I was at RSA Security, and then did a couple of roles at different companies running security programs. And one day, okay, it wasn't literally one day, but one day I did say, boy, every company needs this. And then my wife and I kind of figured out when. I quit my job and started Fractional CISO, and the idea is to help every company with their cybersecurity programs. By the way, if I can go back to 3Com, love to tell your audience. So Bill was my boss for a period of time, and one interesting Bill story. I think I wonder if even Bill remembers this, but so Bill came in to take over our department. And, oftentimes a new boss comes in and needs to make themselves felt right away. But Bill was not that way. Bill kind of let everyone do their thing, see how things went. And then maybe, I don't remember the exact time, but let's say a week or two in, he'd make a tweak here and a tweak there and make some changes. And I will say, Bill probably had the best takeover of a department I've ever seen. And Bill, I don't know if that was a conscious thing or if that was just, your general management skills. But, I'd always said that if I were, in a similar situation where I was coming in, replacing someone, unless if, the department was on fire and there was some, horrible thing going on, right? I would basically, follow your model, which is kind of observe, see how things are going, and then start making adjustments slowly, as opposed to come in and say, hey, here's the way we're doing everything. But I actually, and I don't know if that's part of your philosophy today, but I thought it was a brilliant way to take over a new role.
Well, thanks for the kind words. No, you never told me that, ever. In fact, but I do have a philosophy like that, and it came from a former mentor of mine way back when I was younger and not quite in leadership yet. And that mentor told me when he took over the department how he likes to do it. So it is a philosophy. The only time I actually made a really fast move was one particular job where on my very first day, I was a new vice president of a division. And a guy came in, stood at my office and said, I want a raise. I should have gotten your job instead of you been hired. And I kind of moved on him a little bit faster than I normally do. but no, thanks. I knew that the group was going, and I had to really understand where you guys were at before I do anything. You know that I made a lot of changes afterwards, but
of course, yeah, no, I didn't make it eventually, but the point is sometimes they change the wrong thing to start, right, and then it makes it that much harder to get things right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Rob. Anyway, tell us a little bit how you got to found Fractional CISO.
Yeah. So, so what happened was, so we were, so I was helping with security programs, and I realized that every company was going to need this. And this was 2017, so the security environment was actually a little bit different than today. So I quit my job, and I reached out to everyone I knew, and crickets. But I'd have coffee, I'd have lunch, I'd go on LinkedIn. And then a couple of months later, I had a couple of clients. So, that was a kind of a humble beginning. And I wasn't exactly doing what I wanted to do. I mean, I was helping with security programs. But, in the beginning, you got to get clients. You just need business coming in, and then you'll figure out how to pivot. And I did that for probably a year, so I picked up some more clients. Got one big client, a former coworker of mine, and that definitely helped. Um, Hired my first analyst a little after a year after starting the company, and that made a huge difference because then all of a sudden I could delegate. In any job, right? There's tons of things that you just need to be able to delegate, and so I had an admin, a part-time admin, and she would do certain administrative things, but there's a lot of cybersecurity work that had to be done, and until you have that person that you can hand something off to, it's not really a company. It's just kind of you selling,
Right.
working part-time for a bunch of different companies. And and that made a huge difference. And then hired another employee, and then time went on, and it was easier. And then we got some momentum. I mean, one interesting thing was uh, in 2017, what's a virtual CISO? It existed, but not no one really knew. Like now, you say it, and a bunch of people understand. Oh, it's it's a part-time CISO at a company.
So Rob, you're a great segue into my next question. So how is this pronounced? CISO like
Okay,
Cisco,
good.
or CISO like
Yeah.
cheese, or tell us about that.
Okay. So, um, it's really funny if you think about like CEO. No one pronounces that as a word. It's just CEO or CIO or CTO or CFO. But I think because CISO is 4 characters, people, and it's wordish, they pronounce it. Now, the way I pronounce it is just a way to pronounce it. We've done several surveys. The predominant North American way is CISO, but predominant just means maybe 70%. CISO is also common, and there's other one. There's some folks I would say, um, you know, very well respected cybersecurity leaders that will just say CISO, like they just will spell it out, just
Hmm.
like you would with CEO. In other geographies, like if you're in Australia, it might be CISO. So, so I usually, if I'm talking to a client and they say CISO, I'll usually try to match the way they say it because, it's not like there's a right way. And even at Fractional CISO, I think 3 of the CISOs pronounce it CISO and 2 pronounce it CISO. So it's like, it's like, okay, I mean, whatever.
Sounds to me like that's a whole blog post.
Well,
Okay.
we've done posts on it. It was funny, and on LinkedIn, you wouldn't believe. So we've done a poll, and I think one of the polls we got like 300 respondents. I mean, people are passionate about how to pronounce it.
Yeah, that's why I asked. So Rob, tell us about the top 2 or 3 challenges you overcame in this. Its security space is a very, very large space.
Yep.
A lot of the Cloud Voice Alliance members are MSPs and service providers that also offer security services. So, what were your 2 or 3 challenges breaking into this new area within the security space?
Yeah. So, I think the first thing is when we started was educating the world on what is a virtual CISO. And if you've ever started a very small company, education is not your friend.
Mhm.
Usually it's better if it's an existing thing. I mean, it did give us an opportunity to help pave the way. And so we could kind of do it our way, but that's kind of expensive time, like, educating folks on what it is. One of my biggest realizations. Okay, so actually finding our target market was I would say one of the big challenges. I originally thought we were going to service the RIA, Registered Investment Advisor. At the time, state of New York came out with a new cybersecurity reg, but those folks didn't want to pay, and required a CISO. The reg did. They didn't want to pay for our services, or I couldn't find a match. But what ended up happening with me out in the world, I just knew so many people in the tech space. They all kept coming to me, and so I was like, yeah, no, I get that, but it's like I'm trying to get this market, but it didn't work. So I was like, oh, you know what, let me pivot and actually try to
Mhm.
sell to the people that want to buy from me. That made a huge difference. um, as I said, hiring someone made a huge difference. I think the other thing is just being willing to grind. I mean, I knew that was going to be the case. I'd never been in sales. I'd been in market-oriented roles. I'd been in product marketing, product management, but I'd never really been in sales before this role. And but I was unafraid. I was unafraid of spending tons of time. I was unafraid of reaching out to everyone I knew. And I think those are some of the things. So those are some of the challenges to get us to become a real company. The I would say first hire, the second hire, the third hire, those were kind of really key hires. And then after that, we got some momentum.
Are you still a founder-led sales, or do you have a sales on your team?
Bill, can you say that again? The audio cut out.
I asked if you are still doing all the sales as founder-led salesperson, or do you have someone on your team?
Yeah, so great question. So we kind of, on the sales front, we've kind of gone back and forth. I am now involved in the sales process, or I would say all the sales. Basically, what happens is my team takes the initial calls, they'll qualify. And usually by the time the folks talk to me, there's a good chance they're already going to buy. So I am pretty engaged. Obviously, for us to grow to the next level, it can't just be founder-led sales. But on the plus side, I don't have to handle all the communication back and forth, scheduling the meetings, responding with the content that folks ask us for. But on the minus side, there's only so many hours in the week to obviously take sales calls, right? And I have a bunch of other responsibilities.
I'm
But
sure
yes, it's founder. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of the Cloud Voice Alliance members are going to be able to relate to that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's tough to delegate. One of these days, I think we might figure out the formula. I actually think we're getting better now. There have been some cases where, it's basically me just a validation of the sales process. I mean, I can imagine at some point where we have a new client and I don't even know about it. Someone has to tell me. That will be an exciting day. Hasn't happened yet.
And I think you have somewhere around 30 customers now.
Right. Yeah, we have about 30 clients, and it's obviously, each sale, if I'm involved, it's going to take some time. So
Yeah, interesting. So let's talk about the trends. What are the top security trends that people should be aware of for small and medium-sized businesses now? And let's put it into the framework of the rest of 23 and 24. What are the top issues
yeah.
that people have to be concerned about, especially in the MSP and reseller space and software space?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think MSP space is especially interesting because, well, let me separate a couple things. So one, many small and medium businesses don't care about security until they have a bad event, and they don't think it's going to happen to them. Oh, we're too small. Da 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 da. The bad guys don't care how small you are. They just want to know, is there an asset they can exploit? They're running automation. They're not looking for you necessarily. They're looking for a specific exploit or some vulnerability. And so it doesn't really matter how small you are, as long as you have something that the bad guys can get to. They're going to find you. And I do think that's an insight that a lot of folks don't have, and maybe they get it too late. Either something bad happens to the organization, that's too late. Sometimes if they see a peer organization get compromised or they're a friend of theirs, then maybe they'll take it a little more seriously, but that's a little tough. On the MSP front, it's a very interesting challenge. So we interact with a lot of different MSPs because our clients are using various MSPs. And the MSP itself is a great target because you compromise one site or one thing, and it can lead to multiple client compromises. And if you think about, as a, for instance, even like a tool compromise, so let's say not that I actually don't know of a ConnectWise compromise, but ConnectWise are one of those tools that all these MSPs are using, right? There's another company that actually was a compromise. I can't think of their names at the moment, but the point is one of those tool compromises is going to lead to thousands and thousands of companies where the bad guys can have access. So the MSP has to obviously protect themselves to make sure that their reputation is not going to get hit when all their customers get compromised for some reason or another. And the answer is, of course, vigilance. But it's easy to say, hard to do. Either you're a big MSP and you have a lot of standardized procedures, but of course you're a big MSP with a lot of standardized procedures, but yet you have lots of employees, lots of opportunity for compromise. Or you're a small MSP with maybe less standardized procedures, Now with the small group, you may probably know everyone more intimate, maybe less chance of one of those individuals getting compromised. But because things aren't standardized, oops, we forgot to follow step 3 in this case, and that led to a configuration mistake that led to a bad outcome. So I think both sides of that coin are difficult for MSPs. And the answer is vigilance around how you're managing the process, how you're managing your people, and and do that check of, okay, if this bad thing happened, if this thing got compromised, how can we prevent it from affecting all of our customers?
What are some of the basics for more remote workers now? That's since the pandemic, of course,
Yeah.
a lot of people have moved remote, and I think you might even be an all remote company. I don't know if you are or not.
No, we're hybrid, but a lot of our customers are all remote, and certainly we're remote a couple days a week. I think the first thing is obviously your network might be important, but basically if everyone's home, it's their network that's the thing, and what are the chances that you're going to secure everyone's home network? Probably pretty low. That means their laptop is the endpoint, right? Their laptop is the edge of your network. Their
Mhm.
laptop is the thing that has to be protected, probably has customer confidential information, access to key systems, all those sorts of things. So what are you doing to really lock down that laptop? And I do think we have a bunch of clients that are in that mode, and they have all the tools and they have great processes. We have others, especially newer clients, are like, oh, we let our employees use their own laptop. And,
Mhm.
can we secure it? And the answer is no, you cannot. I mean, I guess if you are allowed on the laptop, then yes, potentially. But the answer is if you do not have administrative control of that device, then no, you cannot secure it. I mean, maybe you could reduce risk, but you can't secure it. You know, so really everyone should be on company issued laptops. That's going to allow for standardization. It's going to allow for you to have EDR, MDM, other tools. It's going to allow for you to have great processes around remediation. It's going to allow you to easily swap out hardware if there is a problem, good backup process, all those sorts of things. If you have a bespoke set of devices that everyone has, it's going to be very difficult to secure.
Okay. So one of the things that I know you and I talked briefly about, but I read a lot about this. So even though a lot of the say CVA members might be small medium companies, if they want to do business with a large company, they may be asked to become SOC 2 compliant.
Sure.
How, how do they, if they want to win that big deal, it might be the largest customer potentially for that alliance member. What should they do? How should they approach it? Because it's expensive, and if they want to win that deal, it's a checkbox.
Right. So SOC 2, we see large majority of our clients are SOC 2, or in the process of SOC 2 are SOC 2 attested, and the reason is because they are selling to that large enterprise. It's one of the big reasons why they come to us. It's like, hey, this big company told me I need to improve my security program, and they may require SOC 2. SOC 2 in itself is not it is a good test to see that you're at a certain level. It's not the end all, but it's certainly in many circles, it's an absolute requirement. Companies need to make sure that they are following, I would say, good cybersecurity practices. And that means good management of their assets, including endpoints, understanding of how their data is being managed, good policies around it, great incident response, both, incident response plan and practice of that, good backups, good, I would say some sort of testing, either vulnerability scanning or pen testing, and then some good processes around change control, around vendor management, risk management. So, those things all sound like motherhood and apple pie. They're all requirements for SOC 2 and many other cybersecurity frameworks. So, I think it's a good basis to follow a lot of those things in general. It can be a little bit overwhelming. We do have some suggestions on how to bootstrap some of those things if you're not interested in hiring someone, if you just want to get going. Getting going is not that hard, right? Getting going means forming a cybersecurity team internally, maybe no expert, saying we're gonna start with initiative focused on 3 things. We're going to turn on, I'm going to just make it up, multi-factor authentication. We're going to make sure our backups are good, and we're going to make sure every device has MDM, or or whatever your thing is, or every device has EDR or antivirus, whatever that might be. And then meet weekly and just kind of make that happen. And then after you get the first 3 things done, say, okay, now we're going to have an incident response plan. Now we're going to add, this policy. And then, 6 months later, a year later, 18 months later, all of a sudden you have a security program that can hold up. So, that's what I would suggest for a lot of these companies that are like, where they don't know where to begin. I would not suggest getting a SOC 2 unless if customers are requiring it, because, there is overhead with that. But more and more large enterprise customers make that a absolute requirement. So also don't delay if it's a requirement.
Yeah, it's part of the go-to-market plan, right? If you, as the Cloud Voice Alliance member, wants to sell to that enterprise and you want to win the deal, you're going to have to commit to do it.
You are going to have to.
In my experience in RFPs or RFQs, whatever, you can make the commitment. You just don't have to have a timeline.
I think it depends. I've seen some companies basically say it has to be done by December 31st of this year, and actually check on it. And I've seen others where it was more wishy-washy of a commitment. But
Yeah.
I do think it depends. I mean, for instance, maybe this is less so for your customer base, but if you're selling to financial services, large financial services companies, they're pretty meticulous. If you're selling to, healthcare actually is a mix, but it really depends on the industry.
So the answer is make the commitment to win the deal. Call Rob. He'll take care of it.
Yeah. So by the way, I totally would appreciate the calling Rob, but there are a lot of great resources. Like, don't feel that you need an expert to get started. You may need an expert to get it finished, but to get started, there's a lot of great resources. Actually, our website has a lot of resources. Like, we help enable folks. They can just read, a bunch of our posts on what things they need to do. We have a lot of content on SOC 2 that is internet accessible. Yeah.
And here I'll introduce the concept that you're offering that all attendees can have access to your community, your cybersecurity community. Can you tell us about your community?
Yeah, so we have we started it a few months ago, a cybersecurity community, and what happened was we'd get a lot of requests from this 10-person company, let's say, and the 10-person company, it's like they weren't, probably not our target customer. I mean, we actually do have some relatively small clients, but usually there's a business driver where they want to spend money with us, and we knew we could help them, but it wasn't, like it made necessarily commercial sense. So we created this Slack community where they can ask us questions, and what's been nice is a lot of other community members have been answering those questions. So I mean, it's not just, hey, ask Rob and Rob will give the answer. My team, typically often will give the answer, but also sometimes folks will jump in and answer questions. And sometimes you just need an expert to answer 1 or 2 questions to really get things going. It's like you don't, but you need to ask your question. It's like, yeah, I see this generic content on the internet, but like I get the generic use case, but like my use case is slightly different, and you can frame it your way and get an answer. And it seems like the folks in there found it valuable, and it's I wouldn't say snowballed yet, but it seems like we're picking up momentum for sure.
Have you checked ChatGPT or Claude or any of those AI tools to see what their responses are to things like SOC 2 or anything similar?
Yeah, so we use both for different use cases. And actually, I'm not sure, I probably used half a dozen different LLM tools. ChatGPT, I would say, on a lot of standard compliance stuff, has some pretty decent answers. The problem is the specifics sometimes are the killer. We will get, it's like, if you have a generic question, sure, just ask it. But if it's like, okay, I have like this constraint, and then the question, ChatGPT is just going to give you the generic answer, not the specific thing. And I think that's where a lot of the it's the same thing. It's scraping the stuff from the internet. So anything you see on the internet where it's like the good generic advice, if you just need generic advice, just use Google or use ChatGPT, totally fine. But if you have a real, I have this business consideration, this thing happened, we have this, I know they told me to do X, but can I do X? Can I do half of X? You're going to need to ask an expert. And, maybe the answer is ask a friend of your, sure, come ask a security consultant, but maybe it's ask your friend who's director of security at some big company that could give you the answer, right? Depending on the size. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what kind of advice would you give our security experts that, people that sell security from the CBA. So what advice would you give them that you haven't already given us? You've given quite a bit already, but what else would you say?
Yeah. So let's just stick on the LLM AI advice. I mean, one thing we've been advising our customers on is to have a AI specific policy. And to get that, you really need buy-in from senior management. So we have some clients that say, we want to be really aggressive in using these tools. We're nervous about our data, but, I'd rather make a mistake, but yet, take advantage of the tools. And others are like, whoa, I don't want any data in there. And we really need buy-in from senior management on what their philosophy is. And they need to roll it out to your team. Like, okay, it's okay to do this. It's not okay to do that. I do think that's something that without explicit guidance, you're going to get employees probably putting proprietary data into those tools, and then it's not your intellectual property anymore.
Well, especially now where you can plug in, even on the free ChatGPT. I have the paid version, but the free one, you can plug in your background information and what you want the decisions to start to, build on.
Yep.
Because it will learn from you. If you put your proprietary data in there, it becomes part of that in order to guide the answers. So that helps the answers, but it doesn't help your data.
Yeah. I mean, and there's some ways that in theory you're excluding that from the LLM learning from your data. It will be specific to you. But how about this? I'm generally skeptical by nature, so
That's interesting. Okay.
Presumably we will agree that data won't get into somewhere, but what controls do they have in place to prevent someone from seeing your data? And so I think it depends on how confidential is it.
Yeah, it's a lot like the early days of social media, where I remember I had to create social media policies for a couple of the startup companies I was with, because people were just putting stuff out there. They were putting proprietary stuff out there and things we did. We had some of the companies have a mystery around the technology. And if you have an engineer who decides they want to play on Twitter, or, nowadays it's LinkedIn, all of a sudden it's out there. So you need a social media policy. The same is true. So that's a great idea with, the AI tools. And there are new AI tools every single day that can help businesses. You just need to learn how to use them and how not to use them.
For sure.
That's a great piece of advice. All right, so let's move to pre-LLM days.
Yeah.
So you started the company before the pandemic.
Yeah.
What unique leadership challenges did you face during that 3+ years? when March 2020 hit until even now, where there's a new strain of COVID out there. It's not as bad because so many people have taken shots. But what do you what did you live through? What kind of challenges did you have?
Yeah, so we were an in-person company pre-COVID, and there were 3 of us, and we just hired the 4th person. So basically, it was 4 of us, and it was supposed to be in person. We ended up giving up. We maintained our address, but we're staying in a Regis, which is like a WeWork type place. So we gave up our physical space. We were all working from home. But we were literally in the same room every day talking to each other. So, what were we going to do in this new situation? So we had a daily team meeting. And then I learned that daily is way too much to have a team meeting, because what are you talking about? So then we did 3 days a week. And then each day of the week had a little different personality. So Monday was, we went over our fundamental. Our fundamental of the week. So we have a set of fundamentals that kind of is part of our company culture. We also would go over a report from finance or marketing or sales or HR, basically what's happening, so that would happen Monday. Wednesday, we'd have our Wednesday presenter. So we'd have, kind of regular status info, and then we'd have a presenter every Wednesday that would go over a specific topic. Usually maybe, hey, I'm using this new tool, or I just rolled out this template, or whatever, whatever the topic might be. And then Friday, we of course have hat day. Everyone wears a hat to our team meeting. And it's just been a tradition. It's been since March 2020 or April 2020 tradition.
So you actually just answered my first lightning round question, which is, since the pandemic started, what one thing in your life has changed permanently? It looks like for business, you've maintained the 3 days a week type
Right.
thing.
Yeah. So we maintain our team meeting 3 days a week. We switched to hybrid, so we're in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we work from home Monday and Friday. We do have, so most of us are in the Boston area. We have a couple folks in Toronto, and then we have one other person in South Carolina. So, so for the most part, everyone in the Boston office is in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and
Okay.
It's good for building collaboration and making sure we're on the same page and kind of the fortuitous conversations.
That's great.
Yeah.
Just a couple more questions here, and
Yeah.
then, because I'm trying to move these hour webinars down to closer to 30 to 40 minutes.
All right. Well, I'll go the fast answer.
Oh, no, it's okay. Do the right answer. So I know that you utilize LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Tell us how you use LinkedIn. Tell everybody how you use LinkedIn and the benefits that it's provided to you so far.
Yeah. So LinkedIn to me has been an unbelievable tool. And the thing is most of our business is referral-based business. So probably 2/3 of our business is from referrals, and a third is marketing leads, essentially. But how are folks going to know that I'm running this business? They've known me for, decades doing other things. And LinkedIn is a way just to remind them, hey, I exist, and I'm doing this thing. And, as a matter of fact, one of our former colleagues from 3Com reached out to me recently, from some content that I put on LinkedIn. I don't know if there's business there, but, but the reality is it just keeps you in front of your network, and it reminds them that you're an expert in this area and that you have the service. And so we're supposed to post twice a week. Some weeks over the summer, I know some weeks have been zero, just because, it's like little vacation, just too many other things to do. But this week we've had some really good posts, actually.
I know they've been really good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how about this? We've gotten a lot of views, for sure.
Mhm.
And oh my gosh! And I filmed one today. You'll see something with me wearing this shirt and a wig in a couple weeks. We filmed it today. I think it's going to be a big hit. Well, I hope anyway. So we do LinkedIn videos. We do one every 2 weeks for LinkedIn videos. We typically have a Thursday article. We've pulled back a little bit from that. I'll usually do a text post, so it'll be some combination of our article, a text post, or video. I'll often do a poll on Fridays, just something that's kind of come up during the week. And I do think LinkedIn to me, I get it. A lot of people don't like social media; it's not fun, but to me, it's such free marketing. It's insane. And the thing is, especially if you're running a referral-based business, your past customers, your neighbor, all those people, they see the content on LinkedIn. So if you can post interesting things that, basically are relevant to your job every day, problems you're solving, I think whatever the content, whether it's a video or whether it's a text post or an article or a link to an article you thought was interesting, or a poll or an image, some people just do like the funny images and just, have something relevant to what they're doing. It's super valuable tool.
Yeah, it's actually a great lead generator as well. If you comment on other people's posts, on influencers' posts, and you have really valuable answers, then it becomes a lead magnet. It's not just your own posts; it's commenting on other people's posts that have large followings.
Yeah, I'm probably less good at that. then
Yeah.
I probably should do more of that. There's a couple
Yeah.
people that have, I wouldn't say large followings, but maybe a couple times my size followings that I comment on, but
Mhm.
usually just because they're in cybersecurity or compliance, they do something funny and I make a funny comment about it. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's exactly what you mean.
So my fiance, she, and life partner here, she does fractional marketing for
Yeah.
founders and founder CEOs typically, especially early stage. And she finds the top influencers in the SaaS world
Yeah.
and the marketing world, and she comments on those posts, and they become lead generation. She has her Calendly post right on her profile, and people just set up meetings, CEOs
No
from all over the
kidding.
world. Amazing.
Hmm.
It's a incredible lead flow.
I will think about
Costs
that one.
nothing.
Yeah, no, I'll think about that one.
Costs nothing.
I do. I mean, okay, so I do have some fun with LinkedIn, but I do find social media somewhat draining. So I try to
Okay.
limit my time.
It takes time. So Rob, what advice would you give to the Rob of 2005, which is
Great
when
question.
well, I actually met you, I think, in 2006 is when I came into no, I did come to
Yeah, I think
3Com
it's 2005. Yeah, yeah. I think
2005,
it was about then. Yeah.
April of 2005. So one thing about Rob is I always knew you had all this talent, but Rob was underneath these two guys that he couldn't really move ahead until he got out from under them. That true? Isn't that true?
How about this though? Greg and Don, I learned so much from. So
Yeah, I
I
know
mean,
they were. They were
I mean, how about so many of the skills I have today are because of them. So yes, I agree with you. Probably I wouldn't move forward there, but also would my career be where it is without them? So
all right.
um,
So what advice would you give yourself of 2005?
um, listen more. I
Mhm.
knew it's amazing how I knew the right answer in 2005 way more than I know today.
That's true of all of us, too. Believe me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it is an interesting thing. I just think about back then and some of the things I said and did, and I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, it was funny, or I get why I said that, but today's Rob would have been a little bit different in how I handled that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that we would all say that. So, so tell us one factoid about you that you're willing to share that nobody else really knows.
Okay, so the only people that know this are the people that have seen me eat an apple. But I will say, every time someone sees me eat an apple, they are shocked, and then I eat the whole apple, like the whole thing. So, and they're like, seeds too? I'm like, yeah, seeds too. I just eat the whole apple. So,
Okay, well, I don't know anybody else who does that except for the pigs and the pig trough. So I don't mean anything personal with that because I've seen that, on a farm. But okay,
well, Bill, you wanted something that no one knows. I mean, like I could say some fun fact that's wildly known, but
no, that's a good one. I like that. I'm sure that's not widely known. All right, so two more lightning round questions.
yeah.
What one piece of advice would you give when hiring a Gen Zer into your
Yeah.
company?
Okay, so great question. And I've thought a lot about this because we have some very smart, talented young folks on our team here. And I do think, this whole in-person, hybrid, working from home, think about back when you were 25 years old and how important it is to build a community at work. And it's very important to have that in person, very important from a mentoring standpoint, very important from building friends and kind of, learning from each other. And, all these remote only companies, I think for the experienced expert, of course, they can work from home and be successful. That 25-year-old kid is probably going to struggle, and they're not going to have the social bonds. They're not going to have the workplace expectation type stuff. They're not going to learn in the hallway from what do the senior people do. And I do think, one of the reasons why folks think this younger generation, something's not quite right with their work ethic and that sort of thing is they are not in person with them all the time like we were when we were young folks.
So they don't have the business social skills, is what you're saying.
They, how about this? Maybe they even have the instincts there, but it's one thing to see to watch a video on how to shake someone's hand. It's another thing to see your boss shake someone's hand when you have a client meeting, or to see,
Mhm.
you know, how you hold the door for people, or what's good etiquette for just in-person stuff, or even work ethic. Like, you have something due tomorrow, if someone's home and they go play video games or something, you don't know, but if you're in the office, you're going to kind of know.
All right. And then the last question is, what's the last book that you read and how has it helped you?
I'm going to go with the last-ish business book I read, because I read a couple of things that maybe aren't awesome for the audience. Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and I can't think Chris Hardy, I think. Fantastic book. So Who Not How really talks about who are you going to put in place in those roles, not how are you going to get it done. And it goes through a lot of really good examples. And I get it, everyone knows that, but until you read the book, it's really, really making the point, why is the boss concerned about how it gets done as long as it gets done correctly? You want to put the expert in place that's going to be able to solve your problem. And I started on one of their subsequent books, 10x, not 2x. Just because I think the Who Not How is such a good message. But anyways, I really recommend that book. It was actually recommended to me by one of my mentors, and highly recommend
Excellent.
Who Not How. Yeah.
Excellent. So, Rob, how can people find you in Fractional CISO if they want to engage with you, your services, or besides the community link, which I put in the chat?
Yep. Awesome. So one, go on LinkedIn, look for Rob Black, Fractional CISO. You'll find us. Fractionalciso.com. You can find us. And feel free to reach out either on the website or on LinkedIn. Love to connect with new folks. Most likely, probably initial contact will be someone with my team, but happy to connect initially and make that connection via LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, I want to thank you, and CVA wants to thank you for participating today. And video kind of has a forever life. It's evergreen content.
Hopefully I didn't say anything too bad.
No, it can be used, and we kept it to under 45 minutes, which is really good. So thanks again for your time and your prep, and thank you, Susie, for your comments. And Susie is one of the regulars who shows up for every single one. It's really great.
That's cool.
I think they build billing software, which you have some familiarity with.
Yep.
So thank you very much again for everybody, and thank you, Rob. And we'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Bye.